Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi, and today we have How Do You Lead as the program. We have with us Lynda Sunshine West. Lynda has ran away at 5 years old and was gone for an entire week. She came home riddled with fears and in turn became a people pleaser. At 51, she embarked on a transformative journey of breaking through one fear every day for a year. I will have questions on this. Sunshine West is a 56 times number one international best-selling author, executive film producer of Wishman, founder and CEO of Action Takers Publishing, co-founder of Fear to Faith Foundation, and host of the Let Me Tell My Story podcast. Known for her mantra, do it because you're scared, she helps people worldwide turn their stories into lasting legacies. Lynda, welcome to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Bibi. I'm excited to talk about this topic today.
Oh, there's so much here that I'll start from the bottom and go upwards maybe. First, I will ask you, how did you discover the mantra, do it because you're scared?
Well, I'll tell the short story on that is, as you mentioned in my bio, I ran away when I was 5 years old and I was gone for a week. Well, I went to the neighbor's house, so I was in a safe environment. But what ended up happening is during that week, I came home and I became riddled with fears because my dad was a very volatile, abusive alcoholic. And that fear started within me at a very, very young age, at age 5. And I carried it around with me for decades until I was 51. And at age 51, I ended up hiring a life coach because I realized that I just didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like my life. I didn't have a purpose, a mission. I had nothing, right? And so I hired a life coach and she helped me to start to see who I am and to see that I have value and I have a reason to be here. I just need to figure out what it is. So after working with her, I came to this realization that fear was stopping me from living my life. And because of that, I woke up one day, I don't know what made me do this, but I woke up January 1st of 2015 and I said to myself, I have so many fears. I'm going to break through a fear every day this year. I had no idea what I was going to do, what kind of fears were going to show up. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a list. All I knew is that I had fears and I wanted to break through them. So I started on this journey, and what I ended up doing is every morning before I got out of bed, the very first thing I did was ask myself a simple question, and I did this 365 days in a row. And that question was, what scares me? And then I'd lay in bed and I would wait till the very first fear popped into my head. And my commitment to myself was that no matter what the fear is, I have to break through it that day, whatever it was. And it's just started this journey of breaking through fears. And I started to realize that I had one big fear, and it just kind of showed up in different ways. And that big fear was the fear of judgment. If I say this, what will they think of me? If I state my opinion, will they like me? So I had this driving force for me for most of my life was I was a people pleaser, and my fears would stop me from moving forward. So that year unleashed the beast, so to speak. That fear unleashed so much. That year unleashed so much within me that my mantra, "Do it because you're scared," came up because I realized that 99% of the time when I had a fear and I broke through that fear, that the result was something good on the other side. Either I met somebody I wouldn't have met, a door was opened that I didn't even know was closed, or something great happened and I was just proud of myself for breaking through that fear. So then I asked myself, if 99% of the fears that we have result in something good, why are we depriving ourselves of that goodness? And I started saying, oh my gosh, this is fear that I must do whatever it is because I'm scared, because it's going to be something amazing on the other side. And I started getting excited when fears started showing up. And it really has just like led the way I live my life now. It's like, oh, that's fear. I must do this because I'm scared, because I'm excited to see what happens on the other side. That's the short version of the story.
Okay, I have some very mundane question on this, and the
Okay.
mundane question is that I was thinking of myself, as you said this, and I was thinking I have a fear of heights. And if I were to break that fear on one particular day, that means I would have to do, like just do it. At night, I think about, okay, tomorrow, I'm going to break my fear of heights. I would have to find a place to go to which has a height, and also have the resource. Maybe I don't have the resource. This is a hypothetical thing. I don't have the resource to go to that height at that particular day. Like I have other things to do. I may not be able to hike that much or whatever. So then what do I do? Did you face this kind of an obstacle?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question because I didn't. See, my fears were so deep rooted in the fear of judgment that my fears, like again, my commitment was that no matter what the fear was, I had to do it. So fortunately, it wasn't like jumping out of a plane or doing any of these things that were expensive, right? None of them cost me probably more than $10. And so I was fortunate in that. And then also to look at that fear of judgment, breaking through that one overarching fear, how it transformed my entire life. So to answer your question, I would start small, and I'll use a great example. I was on a phone with a woman who has, I think it's called agoraphobia. I think that's the name of it, where you're afraid to go out of your house. And so she had been in her house for 3 years. And it was during COVID, which we were all in our house, but like some of us would at least go to the grocery store, or go to the gas station. She didn't go out of her house. And so I was talking to her and I said, well, here's what I recommend. The first day, just open your door and take one step outside. That's it. That's it. You don't have to go around the block. You don't have to go drive anywhere. Just take one step and then close your door and go back in. The next day, take 2 steps out. So we take baby steps through the process. So in the example of the fear of heights, you find something like maybe your fear of heights is like I don't know, like on a big building, being up on the roof, right? Like that's a big deal. Well, start small. Maybe the first thing is to step on a ladder on the first rung, and that's it. And then the next day, step up to 2 rungs. And so what you do is you're reinforcing that it's okay. I made it through that. I'm going to live. Everything's going to be okay. What is the fear of heights? I don't really know what causes that specific fear. I have it to a degree of things that are unstable. If something's solid, I'm fine. So am I really scared of heights? See, here's where it gets kind of crazy, right? Am I really scared of heights, or am I scared of instability? So really kind of looking at it and diving, are you scared of being in a plane? Because that goes 30,000 feet high. And if not, see, like I'm not scared in planes because there's a stability about them. But I don't like being on a swing that is holding on by like a little thread and swinging. I don't like that. Instability. So really figuring out what our real fears are is helpful for us. A great example is there's a saying that more people are scared of speaking on stage than they are of dying. That's not true, because you can stand on a stage by yourself and speak all day long. You put one person in that room, everything changes. Now, what if I say something weird? What if I stumble on my words? What if? What are they going to think of me? It's the fear of judgment. It's not the fear of speaking on stage. See, so when we can get really honest about our fears, what's creating them, and what are they like? How are they really affecting us? It can change the way we see fears. So like, the fear of judgment is big. It fits in a lot of different categories. Like they talk about imposter syndrome. Well, imposter syndrome is really the fear of being found out. Found out by whom? Other people. Judgment, right? So we can walk back a lot of our fears to that one fear, that fear of judgment. And then when we can get control of that one fear, our entire lives can shift.
So what you're talking about is basically a root cause of what has been stopping a person from doing something, or. So what you're actually saying is find the root cause, and that will take care of rest of the rippling effects of it.
And I'm not sure how much of it is actually the root cause as much as it is the root of what it is, like the fear
Correct.
itself. Right, because the cause, what is the cause of my fear? Is it all my dad? Or are there other things that happened that created this
Uh-huh.
fear? We have fear to protect us. And that is like the root cause of fear, so to speak, is that the fear of not being protected, right? So that would be like the root of it all. But how is it showing up? Our fear is showing up in certain ways for whatever the reasons are. But if we can name that fear and realize that, wow, because when the day I said, oh my God, it's the fear of judgment, this one fear, I only have one fear to work on. I don't have a lot of fears. I have one fear. But I was able to recognize that that one fear was controlling almost every decision I ever made. My people pleasing was because of the fear of judgment. What will they think about me? What will they? That was just like my deep rooted fear was the fear of judgment. And I keep saying was because I have conquered that fear of judgment. I still have fears. They still show up, but I don't let them stop me anymore. That's the difference. I am in charge of my fears. It makes a big difference.
Right. Okay. So it's a product of the fear is a product of the causes that affected it.
Yeah,
Great.
I believe so. And I'm a layman, I'm not a doctor, scientist, or anything like that. So when I talk about fear, I talk about my own true experience of examining it for a whole year, living in fear. Every single day I was living in fear intentionally. Who does something like
Intentionally.
that? I don't know. I'm glad I did though. It was the greatest decision of my life.
Yeah. What I also find is that you are quite entrepreneurial, because on one hand you have this publishing, Action Takers Publishing. On the other hand, you have a Fear to Faith Foundation. And then I find that you are the host of Let Me Tell My Story podcast. So I find that you are in at least three different mentioned here, activities which are all entrepreneurial in their own way.
Yeah, definitely. The Fear to Faith Foundation is a nonprofit, and our mission over there is to tell stories of finding Jesus. So, we're looking for people over there where they want to share their story. And so that's what that is all about. It's all about the stories. Everything I do is about story, because the Action Takers Publishing, it's about telling your story. Let Me Tell My Story podcast. It's all about the stories. So it's all the same thing, but just delivered in a different way. But it wasn't always that way, for sure. I was in the corporate world for 36 years. And in those 36 years, I had 49 jobs. I just was constantly trying to find something better, something better. It wasn't until I found entrepreneurship that I finally felt like, I'm home. But now I got to figure out, what do I do? How am I going to make money? Who am I going to serve? It took me 6.5 years to get there. I did food festivals. I hosted networking events. I led masterminds. Ran a women's mastermind for 6 years. I've done so many different types of things, trying to figure out, who am I? What am I here to do? What is my purpose? And I'm so glad I just kept on the path, because part of that, keeping on the path and not giving up. This is when we succeed, is by not giving up. And so I just kept trying to find that path. And the publishing, when that landed, I was like, this is it. This is it. Helping people to tell their stories. And now I live a life of purpose for the first time in my life. You know, it's incredible what happens when we find our purpose.
So I just heard the word landed, and you landed on Action Takers Publishing. How did this landing really happen?
Through the perils of money, you know, time, effort, of failing over and over and over again, really. So when I left the corporate world, here I was in corporate since I was 16 years old, you know, working all those jobs, always answering to people. Well, I had leadership skills. I never recognized that I was a leader. So it wasn't until I left the corporate world, started, you know, became an entrepreneur, started going out meeting people. By the way, that was what do you call it? In alignment with my fears. It was the same exact time that I left corporate. I started breaking through those fears. So it was in alignment with each other, and just meeting so many different types of people, what they were doing, and trying different business ideas. Failing miserably. Like my first event I hosted, it was a food festival, and I lost $70,000 US dollars on that one event. But I came back because I said, okay, here's what I learned. So I didn't fail, I learned. And I kept on with that mentality of go out there, try something, see if it works. And if it doesn't work, how can you tweak it to make it better next time? So again, I was not letting my fear fuel me, right? I was fail me backward. I was letting my fear fuel me forward instead. And I was saying, what do I need to do to make it better? What do I need to do to make it better? How can I succeed? And, you know, tapping into my mentors, my coaches, you know, people that I'd met along my journey, people who supported me, people who uplifted me, people who saw in me what I didn't see in myself. And they are the ones that helped me. I say landed because if you think about like a gymnast, for example, when they do the horse, they'll run, they'll do all these things, and then they jump and they land, and they plant themselves so solidly that, you know, everything is, it's like it's just so firm. You know, you have this firm landing. And for me to get to that point took a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, you know, but I finally got there. And I knew it because what I had been doing during the journey, all the different business ideas that I've had, all the money that I spent, all the time and energy I've signed up for, I don't even know how many courses. Like I have paid, invested a lot of money in myself and my business. And when I finally got to the book publishing, I knew it because I remember that exact moment. I said, this is it. Like I literally was sitting here by myself, like, this is it. I'm a book publisher. Like everything, my whole physiology changed in that exact moment, the moment that I realized what I was readying myself for. And that was now 4.5, almost 5 years ago that I planted that.
Fantastic. How, so the fear to faith is got to do with religion.
Yes.
Would you describe yourself as a religious person?
Yes. The reason I hesitate there is because I have been a Christian for 40 years, but I never really practiced as a Christian until about 3 months ago. So, and I don't know why, you know, I'm not sure, like I just don't have it in my life, you know. So I just really about 3 months ago, I started really looking, you know, reading the Bible and diving more deep, you know, deeper into it. So do I consider myself a religious person? Yes, I have faith. I have tremendous amount of faith. And I've had the faith the whole 40 years. I just never studied anything within the Bible until recently.
So faith can also come with spirituality. So what would be the difference that you have experienced of being religious and not being spiritual?
Well, I believe that the faith and spirituality, you know, they go hand in hand, whether it's through a religion or not, you know, a named religion, what have you, because faith is so I'm going to share an acronym that I created during that year that I was breaking through fears. And that is that faith erases anxious reactions. Fear. Faith erases anxious reactions. Because fear is nothing more than an anxiety, it's nervousness, it's all these things that we're getting up in our body. And so what I realized is that first of all, faith and fear cannot exist together. They exist here or here, right? That's how they are. And so I was like, oh my gosh, when I am experiencing fear, it means that I am not in faith. I don't have faith that I can do it. And so I realized that I need to tap into my faith. And this is faith in myself that I can do it, faith in my mentors and coaches, here that can help to guide me, to help me get over that hump, whatever it is, faith in what I believe in is God, but faith in whatever we believe in, your highest power, whatever that is that you need to tap into in order to push you over that line to say, I'm going to go do this because I'm scared. So for me, religion and spirituality, they do go hand in hand because, God is spiritual. So it depends. And this is, it's an interesting question you asked there because my husband and I have been talking about this. Just because we're Christians and we believe in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, does this mean that others are going to hell? Like a question we've asked. And we don't know the answer to that. We don't have the answer, and I don't need to know the answer to that. But it's just like well, what makes us think? What makes us think that we're the only ones that are going to heaven? So it gets us thinking along that lines, right? And so I don't have an answer. I don't need to know the answer, but it just brings a question to ponder. It doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. It just means this is my view, this is my belief, and I'm going to live based on my beliefs to be true.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that question, but
I find this very, very aligned to how I think. So personally, it aligns to me. But at the same time, now, because you're talking about faith and you're talking about, when you follow a religion, there is a certain practices that you follow or a certain, uh, rites or rituals that you follow. But if you were able to run away at the age of 5, it means that you were not really willing to follow all the rules or rituals of your home or of your family for that time being, at least at that time. So I would like to ask you there that why you ran away. I think you did answer that to some extent there. But when you ran away, what exactly did you feel? And what did you do to take that, okay, this is my step and I ran away? I understand you went to your neighbors and that was a safe place. But then what made you choose that particular neighbor? What made you, think that this is safe enough for me to run away to? And how could you stay away for one entire week and that neighbor did not really, spill the beans?
spill the beans. I love that. Yeah. So I love this question because I want you to, remember back to when you were 5 years old. First of all, one thing I like to stress on what I did at 5 is that I ran away because my father was very volatile and abusive. And at 5, I decided I had enough. Like, I'm not living in this environment, right? So the reason I like to stress this, because those who have children that are 5 years old, those children know what's going on. So really pay attention to what you're doing and saying because they know what's going on. They might never run away like I did, but they might. You just never know. But we're affecting our children. So I want to start with that. So here I ran away and I chose the neighbor's house because she had lots of Barbies. She was my friend that had a lot of Barbie dolls, So I ran to her house. But then the question about the neighbor, like, why didn't the neighbor spill the beans? Well, what actually happened, now I didn't know this at the time, and I'm 5 and I'm at the neighbor's house. I'm safe and everything, and I'm having fun, but I'm getting out of that household. So what I didn't know is my mom was in contact with the neighbor every day. So my mom knew that I was safe. My mom knew that I was being fed and all, bathed and all that stuff. But I didn't know that. So how this affected me is that when I did come home, because after a week, my mom finally called the neighbor and she said, you know what, she's been gone long enough. You can send her home now. Um, I was number 4 of 5 kids. So my mom had her hands full already. And she knew that it wasn't a good environment. She knew that, she was part of that. And so I came home, and the reason I like when I did come home, what what happened in me is that I came home with my tail between my legs and I'm like, they don't want me around. That's why they didn't come to get me. They don't love me. So what happened at 5 years old, my filter that I lived through was on that, based on that. So anytime my mom would give my sister something and not me, she doesn't love me. She doesn't want me around. Anytime my siblings would make fun of me, we all made fun of everybody, but I only saw that they made fun of me. They don't love me. They don't want me around. Whenever they would make fun of me and say, you're the milk, back in those days, we actually had a milkman. He would drive around and drop off the milk at the houses. They would say, you're the milkman's daughter, because I don't look anything like my other siblings. And so when they said that, they don't love me. They don't want me around. Then I get boyfriends. They would break up with me. They don't want me around. Right. So I lived my life based on that filter that started back at age 5. And so that fear of judgment was started at very, very, very young age. I'm just glad I broke through the curse.
I get it. I understand what you're saying. And I also understand how you felt because I am the third of 3, and that too very, very huge gaps between my siblings. So
Mm,
my mother's hands were filled too, because when you have a teenager daughter and then you have a toddler, it's the teenager who gets more attention and not the toddler. So I do
mm,
understand what you are, what you're talking about.
yeah.
Uh, Now let's talk about something in the future. Let's talk about now that you have evolved and now that you have started a business and you have a team that you lead. How do you lead your team?
It's interesting. Leadership is something that, being someone who had 49 jobs in 36 years, I saw a lot of different leadership styles, right? There were some that I liked and some that I didn't like so much. And so I started, as I was being led, I started deciding like how I wanted to be. If I was ever boss, I would, kind of like that kind of thing. And what's interesting though is as I look back at my life, like I was a leader at a very young age and I didn't know it. I had no idea because nobody ever said, hey, you're a leader or you're leading. They never said those words. So I was just doing what I was doing. So, for example, when I was in 7th grade, I was in band and I was the treasurer for the band. And what this meant is that all of the money that came in from all of the fundraisers that we did, it all came to me. I was in 7th grade and I was handling all of the money, tens of thousands of dollars, which is a lot of money back in the 1970s. It's a lot now, but it was even more back then. And so I was handling all that money. I was tracking it. I was, doing all spreadsheets. I was doing all this stuff at that young age. So I was leading back then, but I never knew it. Many, many jobs that I've had, I was leading, but I never knew it. Like I was training people, training managers and stuff like that, but I just never knew that I was a leader. So I become an entrepreneur, and I'm this entrepreneur, and I'm like, I got to do it all by myself because nobody can do it as good as me. I had that kind of mentality back then, and so I was doing everything myself, going crazy, just overwhelmed, stressed out all the time. And then when I discovered that, oh, I'm a book publisher, this is when the first person came into my life that would help me to see that I need to step into a leadership role. And that's not just leading myself, that's leading someone else. And that was Sally Larkin Green. She's the COO now at Action Takers Publishing. But at that time, Sally was going to be writing a chapter in one of our, like one of my, at that time it was just me. So one of my collaborative books. And she looked at me and she goes, you seem a little bit stressed out. Do you want any help? And I was like, okay, if I give her something, will she do it? Will she do a very good job? Will she do it very fast? Will she do it timely? I'm going to give her something that doesn't matter if it never gets done. So that was my first attempt at delegation. So I gave her that task, whatever it was. She did it quickly. It was great. And she said, "Do you got anything else?" And then she just kept asking me, "Do you have anything else?" And what it was doing was, for me, she was teaching me how to delegate. And I was becoming trustworthy, of somebody else, because I had trust issues growing up in a volatile, abusive, alcoholic household, blah, 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 all that stuff created trust issues. So I was learning to trust Sally. And then working with her for about maybe 6 or 7 months, was like, "Do you want to join my team?" Because she was doing it all for free, by the way, for those 6 months. I was like, "Do you want to join my team and be part of this?" And she's like, "Yeah, I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to do it." So I started with that and then started adding more team members. We have 7 people on our team now, and leading them, it's interesting because I'm going, it's like going from a role of the doer to going to the role of the leader and having to let go of some of those doer things so that we can grow. And so we're in a state right now of me still really stepping into that CEO role, because I am the CEO of the company. I'm the founder and CEO, but me allowing myself to let go of some of those other things. But I will tell you this is one thing I've learned about myself. As a leader, I trust my people, and I trust that they will get things done. And I trust that they're going to do a great job. And I think that because of my trust in them, that it allows them to feel like they're always, thanking me for being like them working with us, just grateful to us. And it's not just me, though. It's me and Sally. Like, we are the head of this company. We're running it together. She's doing COO roles. I'm doing CEO roles. I'm still learning to step into them. Will I ever fully step in? I don't know. But it's part of the journey. And I love it. It's so much fun because it helps me to grow more and more as a person. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's where I went with it.
And how does your team look at you?
I feel like, let me see, here's what I feel like, because they have never said, "You're this or that or whatever," but I feel like I have a lot of respect from them because, we base, like, our company is based on honesty. That is extremely important to us. Like, honesty and trust are at the top of our pillars. And so I respect them for what they do and their gifts, their skills, their talents that they bring to the team. And I really respect the way they work with our clients. And it's just, it's great to see that. So I think that they are grateful, for, again, for me trusting them, because a lot of times, um, being an employee for all those years and in all those different jobs, I felt like I wasn't valued as much as value as I brought to the table. And that to me is an important piece. I want them to feel valued and know that we love what they do. And that's why we want them to stay with us, because we've had a couple of our people have been with us the whole time. So like 6 years, since before I was actually a publishing company, I had these other people with us. And so, they're with us and they're grateful to work with us.
I see. What I hear is a lot of adaptive learning coming from your
Mm.
end. I also hear a lot of open-mindedness coming from your end. Uh, how does a person like you, who's handling so many things at the same time, you have one foundation, which is a non-profit, you run a podcast, and I know how much it takes to run a podcast, and also you absolutely own this publishing company. How do you sustain your energy? What do you do?
I do a lot of praying, that's for sure. Yeah, because it's sometimes I need to really tap into uh, to move out of the feelings of, "Ugh, I just want to quit," Like, I don't know how many times I want to quit. There's a bunch. But I immediately say, wait a minute, this is why you're here. This is what you're doing. This is your purpose. Like you are living your purpose. So keep on going. That energy just, what really, really sparks me is I'll give a great example. Last week it was, many of our authors were on Times Square with their book, up there on Times Square in their picture, you were one of them. And just to see the excitement in the authors of what we have given them as like our gift, right? My gift is that I'm able to get you there, and then you do with it what you're going to. And so to see them, that lights me up instantly. So what keeps me going is other people, and to see how they're taking what we're doing and doing something with it. That, yeah, there's nothing quite like that. It instantly, if I'm feeling down and I see one of our authors doing something, I instantly, get a smile on my face, and I'm reminded of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I got to keep going because of it.
One question that arises, it suddenly struck me that as a publisher, you get lots of stories. I'm sure you get, a whole lot of people telling you, I want to be an author, this is my story. How do you know which story is going to be a bestseller? Because you have been a bestseller for 56 times. So how do you know that that book or that author is going to be a bestseller? What tells you?
Yeah, I can do the simple answer of like, I just know it because we know what we're doing, which is true. Because, becoming a bestseller, there's stuff that happens behind the scenes to make that happen. So all of our books are #1 bestsellers, and most of them are #1 international bestsellers. It's because we know the system, right? So if once you, just like anything in the world, it's like once you know the system, you can keep repeating it until something changes. And so as far as the story, it's not to become a bestseller, it's not really about the story, it's about the marketing push behind the story is really how it becomes a bestseller, just like honestly. But how can I tell if a story is something that's going to be impactful? Different question, right? So the stories, every single one of us, we have a lot of stories to tell. So one of the things we ask our authors if they're not sure about what to write is we ask them, what kind of impact do you want to make? Like that's one of the questions. What kind of impact do you want to make? So if I look at my story of running away at 5, breaking through fears every day for a year, and becoming a book publisher, following my dream, my passion, if I follow that through line of like what I've done in my life, what part of my story can make a better impact? And so I pick that story, and that's the story that I run with. And it's usually the story of breaking through a fear every day for a year. That seems to be the one that most people want to hear about because they just can't imagine themselves doing that. And so like, why would somebody do that? I don't have that many fears. That's what I hear a lot. I don't have that many fears. I don't think I could do it. But I did. I had a lot of fears, and I was able to go through that year. So really looking at your story and seeing like, what impact do you want to make? So with my life, I believe that part of my mission and here, while I'm here, is to encourage people to break through those fears. I've talked to a lot of people who've either read my book or just had calls with me that say, thank you so much for saying, do it because you're scared, because now I think about that when I'm scared of something and then I go do it. That's the impact I'm here to make. So everybody just decides what their impact is, and then you go with that.
Fantastic. I get your mantra and how it works. I understand, how you have struggled through your your time of pain, if I want to call it that, but you have learned from it and you have developed something for yourself, which is beautiful to have. What is your legacy? Is that your legacy?
It's a great question. So my legacy is all about the story. When I decided to become a publisher, like I'm a book publisher, then I came up with a mission, and the mission is to empower 5 million women and men to share their stories with the world to make a greater impact on the planet. Again, there's that word impact, right? It's about impact. So when I look at the number 5 million, I'm like, that's a lot of stories. We're on number almost 800. So we have quite a ways to go. to get to 5 million. And then one day it dawned on me that that is a legacy number. I'm not doing the publishing just while I'm here. It's going to keep going long after I'm gone. Action Takers Publishing will be here and will empower 5 million people, just not probably during my lifetime.
That's a beautiful vision that you have.
Thank you.
It's like planting a tree and, a sapling, and then it grows into a tree. That's amazing. Are there any practices that you follow other than praying? I heard that you pray, you're praying. And I remember once when we had a conversation offline, you had said that you take your dogs and you go for a walk. So, what's the difference between taking your dogs for a walk and praying?
Well, there's another practice too, and that's gratitude, right? Gratitude toward, for my life, for being here, for the people that I've encountered in my life. And so they're just, they're different in the way that, gratitude and praying are mindful, whereas, taking the dogs on a walk, it's a way for me to kind of move into a state of meditation, sort of, but then while I'm actually physically doing something. So it's just different energies, by going on, when I do go on the walks, that's creating just a different energy behind what it is that I need in the moment. And sometimes it is, I need to physically get out there and do something.
By the way, you can meditate while having a physical activity too. That's also part of meditation. So there is a meditation where you walk. You walk, and that is meditation. Every step you take is consciously taken as that's a meditation. So yeah, what you did say is absolutely aligned to what meditation practice is. Well, we have almost come to the end of it, and I hope I've been able to, glean all the nuggets of wisdom that I really wanted to glean from you, and I hope that will help my audience. How do you want, if my audience wanted to get in touch with you or connect with you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
They can go to our website, which is actiontakerspublishing.com. And there's a contact me button there. They can do that. Also, if you wanted to get a free download of my book, Do It Because You're Scared, go to actiontakerspublishing.com/do-it. And there's a free download of the book. And then if you download the book, if you're kind of wondering, do I have enough fears to do it for a year or a week or a month? When you download the book, there's an option to join a 30-day fear breaking challenge, and that's free as well. So if that's something that piques your interest, I would check it out and just see what it does and how it changes your life, because I got to tell you, my entire life has changed since deciding to break through those fears. It is one of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my life.
That is also called limiting beliefs. The fears is also called limiting beliefs. In psychology, there's a thing that is called limiting beliefs. You are actually addressing limiting beliefs. That's amazing. Well, with that, I think we can wrap up. And I have heard such beautiful stories. I had heard snippets of it earlier, but now I get the full story. I hope I've got the full story. I don't really know, that only you know. But whatever little I've heard, it's amazing because it has a lot of depth and it has a lot of strength in it. It has a lot of resilience in it, and a lot of verve in it. I think that's the word, because you have a lot of spirit, Lynda, which is so amazing to find. A spirit that is so alive and so very, it almost, when I hear you talk, it's almost like listening to a jazz song.
That's cool.
I just don't know. It just feels like as if there's so much there happening with depth and playfulness and a lot of fun as well, which is a real part of how you are, I think. So thank you so much for being a part of Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much. You go out there and do it because you're scared.